The tradition in Ethiopia does not present a gentle, sentimental God who presides from a comfortable distance. It speaks of a throne that is contested, a lineage that is defended with blood, and a sacred object that carries consequences beyond comprehension. And once this is understood, the idea of Armageddon changes entirely. It stops being a mere prophecy. It becomes an inheritance. The story begins with the claim that the Ark of the Covenant, the golden chest that once rested behind the curtain of the Holy of Holies, did not vanish into mystery or myth. According to the Ethiopian tradition, it was not lost, stolen by invaders, or destroyed in fire. It was carried, deliberately, by those who believed themselves bound by oath and destiny. Carried from Jerusalem to Aksum. Carried into the hands of a lineage that traced itself to King Solomon through the Queen of Sheba. Not a symbolic lineage. A bloodline. A royal house whose authority was not philosophical, not metaphorical, not spiritual in a vague, intangible way, but genetic. The right to rule was scripted into their veins. If this is true, then the Ark is not simply a relic. It is not a museum artifact. It is not an icon for display or meditation. In the Ethiopian perspective, the Ark remains a weapon. A throne. A declaration. A direct signature of the God who commanded nations, destroyed armies, and raised empires by decree. And the one who holds it is not simply a custodian. He is the holder of a claim that predates kingdoms, predates alliances, predates walls and banners. A claim on divine order itself. Consider what that means. The final battle, the so-called Armageddon, is not framed merely as a cosmic war between good and evil, but as a legal dispute over the rightful throne of creation. And the Ethiopian tradition places itself inside that contention. The throne is understood as something that can be carried, protected, hidden, and revealed. There is no suggestion that it is permanently stationed in heaven. The throne has a terrestrial reflection, a mirrored authority on earth that anchors the heavenly administration. Ethiopian monarchy interpreted itself as the maintenance of that anchor. So when the prophesies describe a final war, they are not describing randomness. They are not describing chaos. They are describing a conflict over legitimacy. The Ark is not just a sign of covenant, it is the legal seal. The kings who possessed it understood their rule not as temporary governance but as cosmic stewardship. And in this world view, Armageddon is simply the moment when stewardship is tested. The throne is reclaimed through the demonstration of rightful title. This is not mythology made to comfort. It is theology made to justify force. And it does not hide the violence that comes with divine authority. The Ark was never portrayed as safe. It was always portrayed as dangerous. Those who touched it without permission were consumed. Those who attempted to exploit it were shattered. The Ark is presented not as a blessing, but as judgment in a container. A divine verdict that can be carried to the battlefield. Now imagine a kingdom that believes it still possesses this verdict. Imagine a lineage that believes it has never lost the mandate. Imagine priests who maintain rituals not as tradition, but as the active upkeep of an ancient legal contract. There is no hesitation in this worldview. There is no negotiation. There is no compromise. Authority is absolute. Authority is inherited. Authority is proven. The Queen of Sheba's journey to Solomon is not portrayed as a romantic tale or a cultural exchange. It is portrayed as the sealing of a dynastic covenant. A covenant that results in the birth of Menelik I, who is raised to understand not just royal protocol but divine obligation. When he arrives in Jerusalem and returns to Ethiopia, he does not return with empty hands. According to the tradition, he carries the Ark itself. Not a replica. Not a copy. The original vessel containing the tablets of the covenant and the presence of the God who called himself I Am. The priests who traveled with Menelik did not act in rebellion. They acted in obedience to a higher command. The Ark was relocated before Jerusalem's coming calamities. It was preserved before the invasions, the sieges, the fires, the exiles. And once it reached Ethiopia, it did not wander again. It was placed in sanctuaries guarded by orders of monks who were trained to live and die for a singular purpose, to protect the vessel that contains divine authority. No other Christian tradition preserved this claim. No other lineage asserted this role. No other kingdom ordered its politics around the physical possession of the Ark. Ethiopia did not merely keep texts that others lost. It kept a worldview that others abandoned. The worldview in which heaven and earth do not operate separately. They operate in symmetry. Thrones mirror thrones. Crowns mirror crowns. Wars below reflect wars above. So when the stories of Armageddon arise in Ethiopian tradition, they do not appear as prophecies of total destruction or chaos. They appear as judgments of restoration. Armageddon is the court hearing. The Ark is the legal document. And the lineage of Solomon is the claimant standing before the court. The war is not to destroy creation. The war is to verify ownership. Every kingdom that rose and fell in the ancient world is measured against this throne. Assyria, Babylon, Egypt, Persia, Rome, none of them could hold authority permanently because none of them held the covenant. Their power was temporary. Their rule was conditional. Their gods were regional. Their thrones were built on conquest, not covenant. The Ethiopian tradition separates kingship from empire. Kingship is not expansion. Kingship is legitimacy. When Armageddon arrives in this schema, it is not portrayed as a collapse. It is portrayed as a reassertion of order. The armies that gather are not gathering by accident. They gather because the throne is being contested. The Ark has always carried the right to end conflict by decree. And according to the Ethiopian tradition, the Ark will not remain silent when the time comes. Its presence alone determines the victor. There is no strategy, no negotiation, no alliance. The Ark resolves what armies cannot. This perspective reframes the entire narrative of the end times. Instead of humanity being helpless victims of divine wrath, they are spectators to a legal confrontation that has been unfolding since the covenant was first issued. The war is not between faith and unbelief. It is between rightful authority and fraudulent power. And fraudulent power can be immense, organized, disciplined, and ancient. But it remains fraudulent. So in the final conflict, it does not matter how vast its armies are. It does not matter how many banners it raises. Fraud cannot inherit the throne. Now consider the psychological weight of such a worldview. The priests guarding the Ark are not guarding a relic. They are guarding the proof that their lineage has standing in the court of heaven. They are not maintaining tradition. They are maintaining identity. The temple complexes built around the Ark are not built for worship alone. They are built for containment. The Ark is dangerous. It radiates judgment. Only consecrated guardians may approach it. And once they are chosen, they do not leave. They do not travel. They do not speak to outsiders. Their lives become part of the seal. The kings who traced their descent to Solomon understood their reign not as inheritance of land or wealth but as custodianship of cosmic responsibility. Their legitimacy was not based on personal achievement, charisma, military authority, or popularity. It was based solely on lineage. Blood was the anchor of kingship, and covenant was the vessel. Everything else was temporary. Everything else was dust. Imagine growing up inside such a system. Imagine the first lessons a prince receives: you are not chosen because you are strong. You are strong because you are chosen. You do not hold authority because you earned it. You hold authority because it was written into you before you were born. Everything you do reflects a throne that does not age. Every decision, every word, every failure places the throne at risk. There is no personal life. There is only duty. Armageddon is not feared in this worldview. It is anticipated. It is the moment where all claimants are summoned. The fraudulent powers must appear and justify themselves. The rightful heir must present the Ark and demonstrate legitimacy. And the armies are simply mobilized expressions of this trial. The battlefield is the courtroom. The bloodshed is the argument. The throne is the verdict. No prophecy in Ethiopian tradition treats the end as an apocalypse of meaninglessness. It is not chaos for the sake of chaos. It is not destruction for the sake of destruction. Every blow, every collapse, every rising flame is evidence. Evidence that the world is being forced to reveal its true structure. Every kingdom must show the foundation upon which it stands. If the foundation is covenant, it stands. If the foundation is ambition, it crumbles. This is a theology of steel. There is no softness here. No comfort. No negotiation. No forgiveness without structure. In this worldview, mercy is not limitless. Mercy is specific. Mercy is legal. Mercy applies only within the covenant. Outside the covenant, there is judgment, immediate and absolute. Forget the polite sermons, forget the motivational church language, forget the calm and smiling portrayals of angels. The tradition preserved in Ethiopia does not present angels as gentle guardians with soft wings and glowing halos. It presents them as beings with rank, authority, desire, ego, power, and the capacity for failure. The world described in the Book of Enoch is not organized around perfect obedience. It is organized around hierarchy. And hierarchy can break. The Book of Enoch describes a moment when those assigned to watch humanity did not simply observe. They acted. They crossed a line that was never meant to be crossed. And because of that, the entire order of creation shifted. The watchers descended. Not as messengers, not as guides, but as participants. They took human wives. They taught knowledge that was not meant for early humanity to wield. They introduced weapons, enchantments, cosmetics, metallurgy, and the ability to manipulate the natural world in ways that distorted the intended pace of development. And from this union came giants, Nephilim, enormous beings whose violence was not mere cruelty but consumption of the world itself. The text does not present this as mythic decoration. It presents it as history. Not symbolic history. Recorded history. Events that unfolded before the flood. The Watchers were not demons. They were not forces of chaos. They were part of the celestial administration. They had roles, duties, boundaries. And they broke those boundaries intentionally. In the Book of Enoch, the fall of angels is not driven by pride alone. It is driven by desire, want, choice. They saw the daughters of men and wanted them. The heavenly and the earthly were not meant to merge like that. But they did. And because of that, creation became infected with imbalance. The offspring of these unions were not a blessing. They were not divine children bringing enlightenment. They were predators. They consumed everything. They consumed the earth's resources, the animals, the fields, and then they turned on the humans themselves. Their hunger was not just physical. It was existential. They were born outside the rightful order, and their existence bent the structure of creation toward collapse. The earth groaned. The humans cried out. The sky took notice. This is where the narrative takes a sharp turn. In this text, God does not act instantly. He lets the process unfold to reveal the full extent of the violation. The Watchers believed their status would shield them. They believed authority meant immunity. They believed their proximity to the throne ensured protection. But the Book of Enoch portrays a God who does not tolerate distortion of design. Authority is conditional. Rank is meaningful only when exercised within structure. Outside of it, authority becomes rebellion, and rebellion is judged. So the archangels are summoned. Not to comfort. To intervene. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel each receives directives. Not to guide. To execute. Punishment begins with the Nephilim. They are not redeemed. They are not corrected. They are erased. Their bodies destroyed. Their spirits condemned to wander, restless, disembodied, seeking form, seeking hunger forever. Then the Watchers themselves are confronted. And the confrontation is not dramatic like in fictionalized retellings. It is administrative, direct, cold. They are bound, imprisoned, sealed in darkness beneath jagged stones until the final judgment. Their leader, Semiaza, is placed under the weight of mountains. Azazel, associated with revelations of warfare and ornamentation, is cast into a desert pit, his punishment becoming a warning embedded into the very landscape. The message is clear: violation of the hierarchy is not forgiven. It is contained. At this point, humanity stands in the middle of the aftermath. They have seen the giants. They have seen the angels fall. They have seen knowledge that should not have existed. They have survived the world cracking under imbalance. And into that world steps Enoch. Not as prophet in the usual sense. Not as a preacher calling for moral reform. Enoch is taken because he is needed as a witness, a record keeper, a scribe of heaven. His role is not persuasion. His role is documentation. The heavenly order needs a written account. The punishment of the Watchers cannot be arbitrary. The process must be recorded. The testimony must exist. So Enoch is brought into the presence of the divine. Not briefly, not symbolically. He is given access to the machinery of creation. He is shown chambers where winds are stored, where stars are assigned their paths, where souls wait, where judgment is prepared, where the future is archived before unfolding. His role is to write it down. This is not a mystical experience of emotion. It is an administrative appointment. Enoch becomes the scribe of the cosmic courtroom. And this is the key difference preserved in Ethiopia. In this tradition, the fall of angels is not merely a story. It is legal evidence, a case file, a record of accountability. The universe is not governed by power alone. It is governed by documented order. And the Book of Enoch introduces a figure who is not present as clearly in the earlier Hebrew texts. The figure known as the Son of Man. Not merely an anointed king. Not merely a teacher. A pre-existent judge. A figure who sits beside the Ancient of Days. One who is given authority to judge not only humanity, but the angels themselves. The Watchers fall under his jurisdiction. The Nephilim fall under his purge. The spirits of the violent fall under his final verdict. Armageddon, in the worldview preserved in this tradition, is not merely the end of human rebellion. It is the final sentencing of cosmic insubordination. The narrative goes deeper. The Watchers, after being condemned, attempt to petition. They ask Enoch to intercede. They ask him to speak on their behalf, to negotiate leniency. They ask for relief, not from suffering, but from permanence. And Enoch agrees to deliver their request. He writes it, carries it, presents it. But the answer is absolute. Their sentence stands. The petition is rejected. The order cannot be amended. The violation was irreversible. This moment is critical. Angels ask a human for mercy. The hierarchy is inverted to reveal the severity of the crime. And Enoch returns to the Watchers with the answer. Not hesitating. Not softening. His message is final. There is no redemption. There is no release. There is no future where their power returns. The flood is authorized. The reset begins. But this is the part most people overlook. The flood was not simply punishment of humanity for wickedness. It was the cleansing of contamination introduced by celestial interference. The world had to be reset because the balance had been broken. The arc of time had been bent. The narrative of creation was skewed. The flood is the restoration of order, not the retaliation of an angry deity. And this is where the story shifts again. After the flood, the Watchers remain imprisoned. Their children are destroyed. But the knowledge they release does not disappear. It is scattered, fragmented, embedded into the memory of civilizations. Metallurgy resurfaces. Weapon making resurfaces. Enchantments resurface. Astrology resurfaces. Power reappears. Slowly. Subtly. Spread across cultures without context or accountability. And this becomes the undercurrent of future struggles in the narrative of human history. The Book of Enoch presents history as a contest between knowledge that was meant to be received within order and knowledge that was stolen and used without structure. Humanity carries both. And in this tradition, the role of judgment is to separate what belongs to the covenant from what belongs to the violation. Now focus on the figure of the Son of Man again. He is not a new character appearing at the end. He is present before creation. The text describes him as the one chosen before the stars were assigned their paths. The one who holds authority over the living and the dead. The one who executes judgment on the radiant and the fallen alike. His authority is not bestowed. It is inherent. That means that when judgment comes, there is no trial in the sense of debate. There is simply unveiling. Revelation. There are no arguments. There are no defenses. Every being is already measured. Every action is already recorded. Enoch wrote it down. This narrative restructures the idea of Armageddon entirely. Armageddon is not chaos. Armageddon is accounting. The Watchers, the Nephilim, humanity, the kings, the spirits, the rulers, the hidden ones, the arrogant ones, the violent ones, the mournful ones, everything is already known. Armageddon is simply the moment where the record is opened. The Son of Man does not evaluate. He announces. The resurrection of the dead is not to negotiate. It is to stand in the presence of verdict. No one speaks. The text speaks. The record speaks. Enoch speaks. This is why the tradition preserved in Ethiopia matters. Because without the Book of Enoch, the context of the final judgment is incomplete. Without the Watchers, the reason for cosmic war is unclear. Without the Nephilim, the flood appears random. Without the Son of Man in his pre-existent authority, the role of the final judge lacks the foundation of eternal designation. The Book of Enoch is not an accessory. It is the spine of the cosmic legal drama. And when Ethiopia preserved it, they preserved not just a book, but the underlying structure of eschatology itself. Listen. If you followed the story this far, then you understand we're not dealing with a myth written to entertain ancient minds. We're dealing with a system. A structure. A cosmic administration that operates through order, timing, and recorded accountability. The texts preserved in Ethiopia describe the final stage not as chaos, not as fire raining without reason, but as a sorting process. A separation of what belongs to the original design from what was grafted in through violation. Armageddon is not destruction. Armageddon is alignment. The Book of Jubilees plays a critical role here. It doesn't just retell history, it organizes history. It places time into cycles, into precise numerical frameworks. Time is not imagined loosely. It is measured. It is counted. It is part of the covenant itself. In this worldview, to follow the covenant is not simply to believe. It is to inhabit the correct rhythm of existence. To live within the right calendar is to live inside divine time. To break the calendar is to break alignment with the source of life. And Armageddon is the moment where misalignment is exposed. The Watchers introduced knowledge prematurely. Their interference created dissonance. Not just spiritual dissonance. Temporal dissonance. Humanity began to follow times and seasons that were not theirs. The world began to run on fractured cycles. Jubilees responds to this by providing a structure that repairs the fracture. A sacred timekeeping. A way to maintain alignment even while living in a world shaped by the consequences of celestial rebellion. The final judgment then becomes an unveiling of time. Not the end of existence. The end of confusion. So picture this. Not flames descending first. Not trumpets echoing through collapsing skies. The first act in the final stage is silence. A stillness that is absolute. A moment where every being, living or dead, physical or spiritual, is forced to pause. Not by command, by recognition. Something far older than memory awakens. A presence that was written into existence before stars were carved into their places. This silence is not empty. It is the recognition of authority. The throne is unveiled. Not to be admired, to be referenced. The Ancient of Days sits, not as a king among kings, as the axis of reality. Every law, every principle, every boundary, every oath, every life is anchored to his presence. The moment the throne is revealed, everything that has ever existed stands in relationship to it. Those who existed within its order vibrate with recognition. Those who existed in defiance feel exposed. There is no running. There is no hiding. There is no argument. Identity reveals itself instantly under that presence. The Son of Man stands at the right hand. Not rising. Not approaching. Already there. Already enthroned. Already holding the book. The book is not a list of sins. It is not a diary of human failings. It is a record of alignment. The question is not, did you break rules? The question is, do you belong to the design? The Book of Jubilees makes this clear. Inheritance is not sentimental. It is structural. To inherit the world to come is not to be rewarded. It is to be compatible with the ongoing order of creation. Anything incompatible is not condemned arbitrarily. It simply cannot remain. Its very composition rejects the order of the throne. So what happens in this phase is not pleading, not bargaining, not defending. There is no courtroom debate. There is only unveiling. The judgment is already written in every being. The Son of Man does not determine. He reveals. Now, focus on the separation. It does not happen geographically. It happens ontologically. Existence divides itself according to resonance. Those aligned with the covenant gravitate toward the throne. Those shaped by the legacy of the Watchers, the violence of the giants, the hunger of the fallen spirits, drift into separation automatically. There is no hand pushing them. They cannot remain near the throne because the throne is order, and disorder dissolves in its presence. This is the moment described symbolically across multiple traditions, but here it is precise: the souls gather according to their nature. And this is where the tone of the narrative shifts. Because we are no longer dealing with the past or with the fall or with the flood. We are dealing with the final evaluation of what creation has become. The spirits of the giants, restless and predatory, are summoned first. Not to be confronted, to be removed. Their existence was never stable. They were born from violation. They are destined for disintegration. They are swept into the place where form collapses. This is not torture. This is dissolution. Their hunger ceases because their being ceases. Next, the Watchers are brought forth. Still bound. Still silent. There is no conversation. No request. The time for petitions ended long before. They are not judged again. They are presented as evidence. Evidence of rebellion. Evidence of hierarchy violated. Evidence of authority misused. They are escorted to the final chamber of separation. Not darkness. Not fire. Isolation. A place without time. A place without reference. A place outside existence. They do not scream. They do not resist. They simply fade into the distance of unbeing. Then humanity stands. This is not about righteousness in the moral sense. This is about alignment with the design of creation. Those who live according to the covenantal order, time, law, memory, reverence, remain in resonance with the throne. Those who shape themselves around the legacy of the Watchers, self-creation, self-exaltation, self-definition, cannot remain. They fall away not by being pushed, but by their own nature revealing itself. The world is not destroyed in this process. It is clarified. The mountains do not melt. They return to their intended height. The seas do not overflow. They return to their boundaries. The skies do not collapse. They return to their assigned course. Everything that deviated returns. Everything that corrupted is removed. The world does not end. It is restored. This is the part most depictions miss. The final judgment is not rage. It is maintenance. Creation is not abandoned. It is recalibrated. And when this restoration is complete, something happens that is barely spoken aloud but lies at the center of the Ethiopian tradition. The throne does not stay above. The throne descends. Not as an invasion. As recognition. Heaven and earth were never meant to be separated permanently. The separation occurred because of disorder introduced by rebellion. Once rebellion is removed, separation dissolves. The divine presence dwells among creation not as guest or ruler, but as center. There is no temple because the world itself becomes the sanctuary. The calendar of jubilees becomes the eternal rhythm. Seasons become sacred expression. Life becomes aligned movement. No being struggles against the throne because every being is shaped by the throne. The Book of Enoch hinted at this when it described the new heavens. Not a different sky. The same sky restored to clarity. Stars in the correct places. Paths assigned. Light unfractured. Earth becomes the space where divine presence is lived, not visited. There is no war at this stage. War occurred during the separation. Armageddon is the moment of unveiling that causes the unaligned to fall away. Once separation concludes, there is no conflict left. There is only existence in its original form. And at the center of this restored world sits the Son of Man. Not as replacement of the Ancient of Days. Not as secondary, but as co-expressed authority. The divine throne is not dual. It is mirrored. The Ancient of Days as origin. The Son of Man as articulation. Authority and expression seated together. This is the final state described in the Ethiopian tradition. Not eternal worship in the sense of endless praise. Eternal order. Eternal alignment. Eternal clarity. And now, I want to thank you, sincerely, for watching this all the way to the end. Thank you for your time, your focus, and your willingness to listen to something far deeper than the surface-level retellings most people settle for. Thank you for being here.